Donald Trump, in a recent press conference, made comments that have sparked widespread outrage and disbelief, as he appeared to float the possibility of using military force to acquire Greenland and regain control of the Panama Canal. This stunning display of imperialist rhetoric has alarmed allies and critics alike, particularly as it comes from a former president positioning himself for a political comeback. Let's break down the implications of Trump's remarks, their historical context, and the broader consequences for U.S. foreign policy and global alliances. Trump's remarks on Greenland and Panama. Trump openly stated that he could not rule out the use of military or economic coercion to achieve control over Greenland and the Panama Canal. He argued that these areas are critical to U.S. economic and military security. Regarding Greenland, he criticized the Danish government, a NATO ally, and suggested that its strategic location justified U.S. control. For the Panama Canal, he revisited a long-standing grievance, claiming that its transfer to Panama was a grave mistake and accusing China of abusing the canal. While some might dismiss these comments as bombastic rhetoric, Trump's refusal to rule out military force, a stance that even his own former national security advisor John Bolton criticized, raises serious questions about the direction he would take as president. Bolton, a known hawk, emphasized that such public statements corner allies like Denmark, making diplomacy far more difficult. The historical context. Greenland. Trump's fixation on Greenland is not new. In 2019, he floated the idea of purchasing the territory, a suggestion met with ridicule and firm rejection by Denmark. Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark, holds significant strategic importance due to its location in the Arctic and its untapped natural resources. However, the idea of annexing Greenland by force is unprecedented in modern U.S. history and directly undermines international norms and the sovereignty of allies. Panama Canal. Trump's criticism of the Panama Canal's transfer reflects a common right-wing talking point. The canal, built by the United States in the early 20th century, was transferred to Panama in 1999 as part of a treaty signed under President Jimmy Carter. Trump blamed this decision for Carter's electoral loss, calling it a monumental mistake. However, the treaty's implementation was widely regarded as a fulfillment of U.S. obligations under international law and a step toward improving relations with Latin America. The fallout among allies. Trump's comments have significant implications for U.S. relationships with NATO allies and neighboring countries. Danish and Greenlandic leaders, already blindsided by Trump's 2019 purchase proposal, now face the prospect of outright threats. As Bolton pointed out, such public posturing makes diplomatic resolution nearly impossible. Canada and Mexico, key U.S. partners, are also likely to be unsettled. Congressman Jim Himes highlighted the absurdity of alienating allies like Canada and Mexico, which are essential for addressing critical issues such as fentanyl trafficking and migration. The idea of asserting territorial claims against neighbors evokes memories of colonialism and imperialism, undermining decades of diplomatic progress. Economic contradictions. Trump's rhetoric about annexing Greenland and regaining control of the Panama Canal is fundamentally at odds with his claims of prioritizing economic relief for Americans. Here's why. Cost of acquisition. Purchasing Greenland, as Trump suggested in 2019, would likely cost trillions of dollars. This expenditure is utterly disconnected from the financial realities facing most Americans, who are grappling with inflation, rising rents, and stagnant wages. Moreover, any military action to seize these territories would trigger global condemnation and massive economic consequences. Impact on inflation and wages. Trump's proposals have no plausible connection to reducing the cost of living or improving wages. In fact, the economic instability caused by such reckless foreign policy could exacerbate inflation and undermine efforts to strengthen the domestic economy. Deficit implications. As critics have noted, Trump's plans would add significantly to the national deficit. Military action. Territorial administration and international backlash would require substantial financial resources, diverting funds from pressing domestic needs like healthcare, infrastructure, and education. Republican normalization of Trump's rhetoric. Despite the absurdity of Trump's remarks, some right-wing media outlets have rushed to defend or downplay them. Fox News hosts, for example, argued that Greenland's strategic location and the historical significance of the Panama Canal justified Trump's stance. This normalization of imperialist rhetoric reflects a broader pattern of GOP apologia, where Trump's most extreme proposals are reframed as pragmatic or strategic. Hypocrisy in the anti-war argument. Trump supporters often tout his presidency as anti-war, pointing to his reluctance to engage in new conflicts. Yet his recent remarks directly contradict this narrative. Threatening military action against Denmark and Panama, both U.S. allies, reveals an unsettling willingness to use force for territorial expansion. As commentator Mehdi Hassan noted, this rhetoric stands in stark contrast to Trump's claimed opposition to foreign wars and raises questions about his true priorities. Broader implications for U.S. leadership. Trump's comments underscore a troubling shift in U.S. foreign policy under his leadership, a departure from multilateralism and diplomacy toward isolationism and aggression. If pursued, such policies would erode America's global standing, strain alliances, and embolden adversaries like Russia and China. Moreover, Trump's rhetoric distracts from the real issues facing Americans. While he fixates on Greenland and the Panama Canal, millions of Americans are struggling with economic insecurity. His lack of focus on addressing these challenges highlights the self-serving nature of his political agenda. Trump's remarks about Greenland and the Panama Canal reflect a dangerous blend of imperialist ambition and diplomatic recklessness. By refusing to rule out military force against allies, he undermines international norms, alienates critical partners, and jeopardizes U.S. economic and national security. As the 2024 election looms, Americans must critically evaluate the consequences of such rhetoric and demand a foreign policy that prioritizes collaboration, stability, and the real needs of the American people.